Some stories, they're not just dusty old history books, right? They're more like echoes. They bounce through time, carrying warnings and wisdom that are meant for us, right here, right now. And the 10th chapter of 1 Corinthians, well, it's one of the loudest echoes of them all. It's a message straight from the past, written for our future. Okay, let's jump right in.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we're going to dig into some really crucial warnings from the past. Then, we'll see why those warnings should make us want to flee from false gods. And finally, we'll get super practical about how to live every single moment for God's glory.
All right, let's start by jumping in the time machine. We're about to witness one of the most epic and honestly cautionary tales ever told, the story of ancient Israel's journey through the wilderness.
Paul kicks things off by reminding everyone of their spiritual ancestors. Verse 1 says they were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea. Just picture that. A massive, swirling pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. Basically a divine GPS leading millions. And then the Red Sea splitting open, creating these towering walls of water as they just walk across on dry land. Wow. Verse 2 says they were baptized into Moses, which was like their total commitment to his God-given leadership. Then, verse 3, all ate the same spiritual food. Imagine waking up every single morning to find this fine, mysterious bread from heaven, manna, all over the ground. And verse 4, this is where it gets really wild. They all drank the same spiritual drink from a spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. Just think about that for a second. A portable, life-giving spring, gushing water from a rock in the middle of a desert. They had every single advantage, every possible sign of God's blessing.
But then, bam, verse 5 hits like a ton of bricks. After all those miracles, this is the result. The whole scene just shifts to a vast, sun-scorched desert, totally silent except for the wind. It's this tragic, stark evidence of a whole generation that saw miracles up close but completely missed the point. They started the race, but they never made it to the finish line. So you might be asking, why the dark turn? Well, verse 6 spells it out. These things became our examples. They're warning signs for us. And the very first one in verse 7 is against idolatry. This takes us right to the foot of Mount Sinai, where this golden calf is just gleaming in the firelight, and the people are going wild, eating, drinking, and rising up to play. It's a scene of total chaos, a people forgetting the God who just saved them, for a God they literally made with their own hands.
And the warnings, they just keep getting more intense. Verse 8 drops this shocking number. Nor let us commit sexual immorality, as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 fell. 23,000. Let that number sink in for a second. In a single day. This wasn't just some small mistake. It was a catastrophe with immediate devastating consequences.
The list of failures just keeps going. Verse 9 warns us, nor let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed by serpents. Can you picture it? The dust of the camp floor suddenly alive with the glint of coppery scales as these fiery snakes swarm through, a direct result of them putting God to the test. Then verse 10 adds, nor complain, as some of them also complained and were destroyed by the destroyer. Imagine this silent, shadowy, unseen presence moving through the camp, a divine judgment putting a stop to all their grumbling. Verse 11 really brings it all home. These things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our instruction. This isn't just some ancient history. It's a personal heads up. And verse 12 brings it right to our doorstep. Imagine someone standing super confidently, even a little arrogantly, right on the edge of a high cliff, totally unaware that the ground right under their feet is starting to crumble. That's the danger of thinking you've got it all figured out. But after all that doom and gloom, verse 13 is like a sudden burst of sunlight. It's a huge promise. First, no temptation you're facing is some weird new thing. It's just part of being human. And second, God is faithful. He knows what you can handle, and he won't let you be pushed beyond your limits. It's like being caught in a dark, raging storm, and then suddenly a beam of light breaks through the clouds and lights up a clear path to safety. That's what God promises. With every single temptation, he builds an escape route.
Okay, so that's the backstory. Now, in this second part, we're going to see how that history lesson applies to a clear and present choice that every single one of us has to make.
Paul brings it all crashing into the present. What does this whole story of golden calves and desert wandering have to do with our lives, with the choices we're going to make today, tomorrow, and the next day?
The answer comes in verse 14, and it is not a gentle suggestion.
It's an urgent, flashing red lights command. Flee from idolatry. That word flee means to run for your life. Imagine seeing some shadowy, monstrous idol start to move, and your only instinct is to turn and sprint away. That's the vibe here. Then in verse 15, Paul says, hey, I'm talking to you like you're smart people. Think about what I'm saying. He's asking us to use our heads and follow his logic.
He builds his case by drawing this powerful contrast, starting with communion in verse 16. The cup of blessing, isn't that a participation in the blood of Christ? The bread we break, isn't that a participation in the body of Christ? That word, participation, is key. It means fellowship, sharing. And verse 17 spells out the amazing result. Because we all share that one loaf of bread, we, a whole bunch of different people, become one body. It's this profound symbol of unity with Christ.
And now for the dark reality. In verse 18, he says, look at our own history. People who eat the sacrifices are partners with the altar. The principle is simple. Eating is participation. Then in verse 19, he asks, is an idol even a real thing? Well, no, it's just a piece of wood or stone. But, and this is a huge but in verse 20, the spiritual reality behind that idol is very, very real. He says the sacrifices of pagans are offered to demons. So if you participate in their ritual, you're having fellowship with the spiritual power behind it. Imagine a pagan altar where the smoke from the sacrifice twists and turns into these demonic, shadowy figures. That's the spiritual transaction that's actually happening. Verse 21 just lays it all out on the table, crystal clear. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the Lord's table and of the table of demons. You just can't. It's an absolute incompatibility. Picture a single table, split right down the middle. One side is bathed in warm, holy light. The other is plunged into this deep, menacing shadow. You have to choose a side. You can't have a foot in both worlds. And he closes out this section with this thunderous question in verse 22. Or do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? And he just lets that question hang in the air. It's a real gut check moment, isn't it? Do we really think we can mess around with God, play in the territory of his enemies, and somehow come out okay? All right, let's dive into our final section. We're moving from these heavy warnings and stark choices to some intensely practical wisdom on how to actually navigate everyday life. In verse 23, Paul gives us this whole new filter for making decisions. The question isn't just, is this technically allowed, or can I get away with this? The bigger, better questions are, is this helpful? Does this build other people up? And then verse 24 really seals the deal. Let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being. It's this radical shift away from what's in it for me to what's best for them.
And then it gets super practical, talking about a common problem they had, food that might have been offered to an idol. Rule number 1 from verses 25 and 26, eat whatever you buy in the market. Don't ask questions, because the earth is the Lord's. Rule number 2, verse 27, if a non-believer invites you over for dinner, just eat what they serve you. But then, here's the twist in rule number 3, verse 28. If someone at that dinner leans over and says, hey, this was offered to an idol, then don't eat it. And the reason why is absolutely everything.
Verse 29 explains the motive perfectly. You don't eat it for the sake of the other person's conscience, not for your own. See, you know the idol is nothing, but maybe they don't. If they see you, a follower of Christ, eating it, it could seriously confuse them or even damage their fragile faith. Your freedom should never become a stumbling block for someone else. In verse 30, Paul asks, why should my freedom be judged? And the point is, it's not about being judged. It's about love choosing to limit its own freedom for the sake of another person. And all of that leads up to verse 31, which is, this is the mic drop moment of the entire chapter. This is the ultimate principle that governs absolutely everything else. It's the North Star for every decision, big or small. From the most boring, mundane act like eating and drinking to the biggest choices you'll ever make, the one single unifying goal is this: do it all for the glory of God. So he wraps it all up with the final aim. Verse 32, give no offense. Basically, don't be a stumbling block to anyone. Verse 33, in everything you do, try to please everyone, not for your own advantage, but for their good. And why? What's the ultimate goal of living this selfless, God-glorifying life? It's simple and it's so profound, that they may be saved. And that leaves us with an echoing question of our own. This ancient text, it's not just a history lesson, it's a mirror and a map. It shows us the dangers of the past, and it charts a course for the future. So the question is simple. In your world, a world filled with a million tiny choices every single day, what will you do for the glory of God?